Everybody has come to understand technology is an ever-growing process, right? I mean, if you think back to, when I first started hunting, I was using a straight 4-power scope that was beat up and hand me down 4 or 5 times on a beat up old rifle. And, I was wearing, I'll never forget the first time I got to borrow a piece of clothing that was camouflage, right? I'd been wearing my blue jeans and a buddy had some army pants and they were camo. And by golly, I was a hunter all of a sudden, right? Technology has come a long ways. Everything from the scopes that we use to binoculars to range finders to the latest and greatest of apparel so that your body is not at risk of hypothermia under extreme conditions. We now are shooting, whereas we used to shoot 200 to 300 yards and that was a really long shot. There's guys out there that don't even want to pull a trigger unless they're 1,000 yards out now. Technology is growing and expanding, and advancements have come in many ways. I am, being a traditionalist to some degree. Some technology I embrace and am excited about, and some technology I'm not. There are some hunters out there who wholeheartedly embrace every piece of technology and want to put it all to use. And there's some out there that believe that we shouldn't be using any technology at all whatsoever. And that's, really clearly represented when you think about how long it took us to get lighted nocks as an example, which does not assist anybody in accomplishing success in a hunt. It simply assists them in not wasting a game animal by letting them know where their shot placement was and assisting them in locating the animal. Um, so there's become in recent years a huge advancement in technology, everything from transmitting trail cameras to thermal imaging use to advancements in night vision goggles to there's the use of drones, right? There's all sorts of different technologies that are relatively new on the scene. If you look at the big picture, the question was posed to the department and the commission, should some of these technologies be restricted? The department, Idaho Fish and Game, worked really hard to put together a technology working group. They called it the HAT Committee. And they put this group together under the premise that each different technology advancement would be reviewed by the group. And any technology advancement that the group decided unanimously needed to be restricted under the fair chase premise, that the commission would consider restricting those tools. The HAT Committee, I tried really hard to get on it and was not selected, but I had a few friends that were. The technology working group was informed that these restrictions, should any pass or be implemented in any way, would only be correlated to ungulate species, deer, moose, elk, pronghorn, bighorn sheep, etc., not predators, being bears, lions, and wolves. So in all of the questions, from what I understand, in all of the process of months of these folks volunteering their time and attending these meetings, they had a lot of extensive conversations. And some of those conversations included things like, there's now guys using thermal imaging during the daytime to glass a hillside that you otherwise would never spot an animal on, and picking out every animal that's over there because they have thermal imaging. It's easier to see those critters in that way. Some folks have a major issue with that. There was also an instance of guys using thermal imaging in the dark at night, well before shooting light, to spot, locate, hike into, and get in shooting position of an animal before it was even shooting light. Whereas other folks who don't have thermal imaging, haven't invested in that technology, were hiking in there only to find that even if they got there right at first light, people were beating them there. So there becomes this conflict. I understand that there's conflict there, and there's a lot of different opinions surrounding that. Some say, well, if you want thermal imaging, suck it up, make the commitment, make the sacrifices it takes to be able to afford it, and go buy thermal imaging if you want. Don't blame that person for having thermal imaging and using that tool to get there and be successful because you weren't willing to make the sacrifices that he made to obtain the thermal imaging. I understand that argument, but I also understand the other guy who's more of a traditionalist, who's maybe taking his kid for a hike for, on their first hunt, and he works his guts out to get his young kid in on some critters, and he shows up there, and here's these snipers that, have been taking critters all year, and they're using thermal imaging, and he feels like they've been cheated somehow. So only trying to paint the picture of the rift that's causing the question, right? So the Hack Committee comes to a conclusion that some technologies should be restricted. They did not come to a unanimous vote on transmitting trail cameras was one of those. But the commission felt that when it was presented that it was uh, close enough to a consensus that they needed to obtain public comment, right? To identify what the public really wants. So they put together a public comment survey and they put it out to the general public. From my perspective, the public comment survey wasn't presented in a way that was easy to understand. It wasn't easy to access. Once you got there, your public comment really consisted of multiple choice rather than having the opportunity to comment. Unless you opposed it, then they gave you the chance to comment. So there were some things there that some of the public really struggled with and didn't like about the public comment setup in the first place. Long story short, the commission had given the impression that the public comment was what was going to dictate these restrictions moving forward or not moving forward. The public comment came back 70% opposed. The commission actually clearly made the statement that because I'm trying to think of the verbiage that was actually used. I'd have to watch the video again, but it was something along the lines of some outdoor industry, some leaders in the outdoor industry had lobbied their own personal opinions, and that skewed their public comment. And so, therefore, they didn't believe that the 70% opposed to restrictions was accurate. And they voted to implement the restrictions regardless of that. Hence a whole ton of turmoil right now between Sportsman, the commission, to now include legislators, to include a whole ton of drama that's really unfortunate because when it really comes down to it, guys, we're all on the same team. We're all wanting the same things. We're all wanting the same experiences in the field, and we all want what's best for our wildlife. But right now, unfortunately, there is a ton of turmoil surrounding the topic, and specifically to the fact that the public comment that was given was not listened to.
Yeah, I remember that too. I saw that video as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. One, I think I'm kind of like back and forth with the two. I agree with the fact like, I sometimes think like, yeah, if everybody had the technology, it would be an issue. I guess if I was to give an opinion, and this is a strong opinion, so you don't have to agree with me on it. Most of the people that have this type of technology, there's not many. Who's gonna who's gonna spend $10,000 on a pair of actual legit thermals? Who's spending $15,000 on a long range rifle? Who's spending this money like trail cam? Those solar cameras, those aren't cheap. They're expensive. And so I feel like, yes, I agree. Like technology's, yeah, you could look at it as it's getting out of hand in some way, shape, or form, but I don't think those are the actual issues that Idaho's facing. Those aren't the actual issues that Montana's facing. That's a small percentage. Small percentage of hunters have that much money to throw at. The majority of the hunter has a gun that's $400 that they picked up at North 40
Wasn't a hand me down from Grandpa.
or hand me down. Most of the camo like is hand me down. Like if my order of QU is really expensive. I'll tell you what, like it's not cheap. You got to take really good care of that stuff. I want to cry every time I rip a piece of QU on a branch. I'm just like, no, I just got that rain gear. It's not cheap rain gear.
Hey, there's a lot of people giving it away for free right now. So
Yeah. But I received a lot of controversy when I was actually supporting all the technology. Like when I saw this coming out, I was like, I don't think all these things should be banned. I was getting a lot of heat over it. And people were like, oh, you agree with thermals? Oh, you agree with this? And I'm like, no, like honestly, I don't run thermals. I don't own a pair. I agree with freedom. Like, it's just like what, like you can go down this rabbit hole, like we're talking about banning technologies. Like you can go down to start banning compound bows. You were talking about the Illuminac. Well, okay, you don't no longer have sights. Okay, no longer have a peep sight. Oh, now you're no longer to have cams. Now you got to stick to a traditional bow. Like rifles, no longer have allowed to have a scope, and it's like the reason for these technologies in a lot of ways is not just it's people think it's ruining hunting, but in some way it's benefiting hunting. Like your less animals are getting wounded in the woods, and you have how many hunters do you know of that are and you probably remember this, Justin. You remember those people that like didn't know anything about long range, and it doesn't have to be us, but I think every hunter knows a guy who was flinging lead at 400 yards and not knowing where that bullet's going to hit.
No idea.
No idea. And this is like now, I'm shooting 400 yards. It's an educated shot. Like I'm not flinging lead. Like, and I wasn't doing that before. So I'm not saying I was doing that before, but a lot of times you didn't walk with a rangefinder. So like 300 yards to 200 yards, you're just like, I think it's close enough. People don't realize like, so 350 yards. So, and I'll give you an example. So there was a day I went in the woods without a rangefinder, right? Because I know the hat group, they're talking about, limiting rangefinders, right? And it wasn't on this specific bill, but it's, I've heard this, they've had discussions about it. I one day went out in the woods without a rangefinder and I was like, that's fine. I like most of my shots aren't going to be that far anyways. Well, I saw a nice whitetail buck at 350 yards. Thing is, I didn't know how far it was. And I was like, oh, that's close enough. I could see its rack from the naked eye. Like I got on a rest, I shot, I wounded the buck, and I was sick to my stomach like crap. And I had to go down there, and thank goodness I had tracking snow. I was able to sneak up on it and shoot again. I looked, and I was like to say I was almost like 7 to 8 inches lower than I wanted to be with that gun I was particularly shooting. And I was like, what in the world? Well, then I talked to Travis, and we did a calculation on our, when we went home. We're like, well, let's check the ballistic coefficient. Let's check the stats on your gun. And I had an 8-inch drop with that gun at 350 yards. If I would have had a rangefinder that day, I wouldn't have wounded the deer. And so these technologies, in a way, like as long as you're responsible with it and you know what you're doing with it, then it's fine. I think it's the same thing. You could probably agree with trapping. If you're a responsible trapper and you have the education to trap, you're going to have less chances of catching something you don't want to catch.
Absolutely.
And so you're better off educating people than banning people with these technologies. And so that's kind of where my stance is. And I don't know if you agree or disagree with what I'm saying there, but I don't think all these technologies are bad.
I completely agree with you, Tom. And the other thing that I think that a lot of people overlooked in that discussion is the fact that by the time a sportsman gets far along enough in their hunting career to have those technologies and to be able to afford those technologies, they're not the guys that are 20 years old out there shooting everything that moves. They're not the brown, if it's brown, it's down crowd. The guys that have those technologies are using them to be selective because they're only going to take an animal if it's exactly the animal that they want to take. And so, there's a lot of that conversation I think that gets missed, or overlooked as well. I don't think that, I think that the premise that, oh, well, if these guys are using these technologies, they're just slaughtering everything. I completely disagree. And you started out the conversation there talking about that you didn't believe that was the problem that the state had. My personal opinion is that the problem that the state has is we have a ever-growing population of residents, right? At one point, we were at 300 new residents a day. And so the hunting community is growing by huge leaps and bounds. And then on top of that, we've got a non-resident population who everybody really wants to come here to hunt because tags are easy to obtain. This is the first year they went to controlled hunts, et cetera. And so it seems to me as though maybe they're trying to manage this overabundance of the hunting community and perhaps wanting to steer clear of having to have the conversation that maybe we don't have the game populations to sustain some of the hunting opportunity as a opportunity state as what they would like everybody to believe. Opportunity and healthy populations sell tags, And I understand that they've got a business to run just like anybody else. If they aren't selling tags, they're not successful. But I think that in some ways, maybe that conversation needs to turn towards what is the actual health of our game populations and what else needs done to enhance that or inhibit the opportunity.
There's
Yeah.
I've the whole time I've been reading through the public comments, just off to the side here. And I remember we were talking a little bit, part of the conversation early on in other videos or whatever it was about like trail cameras and just for someone just kind of looking at this in a bigger perspective, I'm like, yeah, how are you going to do that with private property? People who might have cameras and live feeds it for security purposes. Tom and I have talked about like private flying over areas, non-hunting during season. Uh, Drone, there's a lot of drone videographers out there.
Yeah, like real estate, like my fam or my mom and my Trevor, they're both there in real estate, and if they're flying and they're close to a boundary of public land, they're going to get in trouble. Which I get the drone thing. Like I don't agree with that. But like us, our family owns airplanes, and we're not like a lot of times we're just flying to enjoy flying, and the majority of people with the pilot's license are not hunters. So how do you control that? How do you control not being? Have you heard about that at all? Because I know Travis, my brother, he called the commissioners and he said they're like, oh no, we're only going to deal with we're not. I don't know why you know airplanes were in there. It's just drones, but now it's starting to show up as airplanes again. Justin, have you like? Do you know what's going on there? Because we're all confused about this. It's like, how do you ban flying for 4 months out of the year? I don't know.
I'll share a perspective. Take it for
Yep.
what it's worth.
Yep.
Um, I have the utmost level of respect for every commissioner who steps into that role. That is an extremely difficult job, and one in which every decision you make is scrutinized to the utmost, nth degree.
Yeah.
Those poor guys, they pour their heart into what they're doing, and they're trying really hard to do the right thing. Sometimes I believe that there's some confusion that transpires between the legal team and the department, where some of these proposals are being drafted, and the commission, who's trying desperately to understand exactly what the intent is of the proposals, and sometimes there's some confusion there. The private land thing is one topic that I personally took some severe heat over from some commissioner, because he believed that I was intentionally falsifying information to sway people to my viewpoint in relation to whether or not cellular trail cameras were going to be legal on private lands. The way that I read it, regardless of what the intent was or wasn't, the way that I read it when it initially came out, I thought that it would inhibit cellular trail camera use on private lands if you were going to be hunting those private lands. So that was my presentation. It was understood by some of the commission to be that I was intentionally falsifying that information, and their belief was that it didn't include private lands. Yet, if you go back and watch that video, even the deputy director, when asked outright whether it did or didn't apply to private lands, clearly stated, unless it's called out, it absolutely does. And then they corrected her and said, "Oh no, we changed it. This it doesn't apply to private lands." Anyhow, I think that what happens in those instances, Tom, is that sometimes the verbiage is difficult to understand. And the commissioners are people just like you and I, and as much as we're trying to understand it, so are they. And so sometimes I think these conversations, it gets a little bit convoluted and there's misunderstandings. And in this particular case, there's even misunderstandings, over what my personal intent was, when my intention in the whole conversation was, hey, let's look at this. Let's make sure to get the verbiage right so that it doesn't have unintended consequences. It was taken as though I was using that somehow to misguide people, and that certainly wasn't my intent. But so to answer your question, I don't know that that I can answer whether or not it does or doesn't apply to airplanes. I've seen that, go back and forth, and you'll talk to one commissioner who understands it to be one way. You talk to the next commissioner who understands it to be another way. And you talk to a third commissioner that says both of those guys are wrong. And then you go to the
You
department.
get a different answer from every commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go to the legal team from the department, and they may straighten everybody out because they're the ones that actually know the law and how the verbiage has to be to create law. And they may, nobody might be correct. I don't know. I just think that everybody has good intentions, and sometimes it's easy to get, to be misunderstood in those instances.
No, you're right. And I'm glad you brought that up and just like giving them the credit. Like, they put in their time and helping everybody out here and stuff. And so that's really important, and so and you got to only imagine how much it's like, I think of it like a ref. Like, nobody likes the ref in a basketball or football game. Like, he's the most hated man on the field. This is perhaps the commissioner feels the same way. He's like, he's not getting a phone call from a positive person. Well, it's like, and it kind of going back to, I mean, I know I'm bouncing all over the place here, but I've attended some of those meetings that the Fish and Game have on, the mule deer population and stuff. I love attending those meetings, and I see those guys, like you said, they'll get a little tipsy, they'll get drunk, and they want to go to this meeting to like throw fists. And it's like, dude, these people are doing their job. They're trying to help. Like, the reason why they're allowing like this public opportunity for us is they want to hear our opinion. They're here to help us. And so I think it is important for us to be able to treat them with the respect and to voice our opinion, and hey, if we treat with them with respect, they'll perhaps listen to us. Your odds are higher they're going to listen to you than when you're shouting or banging your fist on a table, So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
That's a good case study. So that was kind of breaking it down as far as
Yep.
one area that is a part of wolf management in some way. And we can actually dive a little bit more into this in a second. But I think it's important for listeners here to understand that what Justin is talking about and Tom applies to a lot of states.
It's happening in Montana too right now.
Yeah.
So Montana, well, again, and it's not too far off topic, but they've really taken a big toll on the non-resident tags. Now, I understand, same thing as an Idaho resident. We don't like non-residents, the flood of non-residents here. I can't blame people for wanting to hunt in this beautiful state. Same thing with Montana. But Justin brought up a really good point, like the amount of residents that are living in Montana, and new move-ins every single year where, like, are they actually handing out more non-resident tags every year? Or is it just the population in Idaho and Montana is growing, and those people are getting a tag every year regardless? It's just, there's no quota on how many tags. There's no limit on it. Non-residents there are. And so there's a lot of issues there to be discussed. The one thing I always say is you got to look on the other side of the line. And, some of these states that have world-class bull elk, world-class muley bucks, they're very limited, unfortunately. Look at Utah, look at New Mexico. The reason why they have those big mature animals running around is they're really limiting hunting pressure. And that's another thing too. And so it's not, so I'm not always ready to blame predators on everything. So sometimes it's people too. So but it's important to identify where the issues are. Is it people? Is it predators? I'm against the depredation tags on cow elk. I'm like, hey, our elk get enough heat. Do we really need to start shooting up all the cow elk in the valley where that's their wintering range? And so there's a lot of issues that I guess we can cover in one podcast, but but I think the biggest point is just identifying the issue and not being quick to identify an issue. Like, do the research. I think it's really important to do that. So
Yeah. To sum it up, that it's a model that Idaho isn't the only state that has problems. Every state has its own problems, and every state has these conversations going on with different issues. And wherever you're from, you need to be a part of those conversations. and not wait until last second to jump in, get proactive. And that's where we talked about being a member of an organization or an association to be in the know and hear about it first so that you can jump in and take quick action. Uh,
Well, yeah. Well, can I bring up one more thing? Well, I mean, but then you could wrap it up. But I was just saying same thing. So similar to Justin, like getting involved, you'll you'll do a post like let's say it's like, oh, like this is a time to comment on the mule deer, right? Or like to attend to this meeting that the Fish and Game are keeping open to the public. And you have everybody on Facebook, like hundreds of people saying their opinion. And then you go to the meeting and there's four people that show up.
Great point.
Yeah. And it's like, everybody was so opinionated. Where are you? Like, this is where you need to be, not in
I
the
do
comments
have a
section.
question about that. Like on the comments of
Yeah.
the actual submissions that go through to the hat working group. How do they do that? How do they discern who's legit? Is there ever a concern about like bots? Like obviously social media is flooded with bots and bot surveys. How are they using their surveys in a way that's legitimate and counting these comments for accuracy?
So I have to assume, Taylor, that they have, I mean, there's teams of educated folks who are putting these surveys together,
Hmm.
who are, have degrees in whatever it happens to be. I don't even know. But so I have to assume that they have protections built into that system to weed out the bots and things.
Hmm.
I will tell you that I've actually witnessed firsthand our commission be presented with public surveys, information, previous years, previous topics, where the department literally came out and said this number of comments was form letters, this percentage of those came from out of state.
Hmm.
This number of comments were actual comments from residents about
Hmm.
this topic, that were specific to the topic. A lot of times the comments that they get, and bless their hearts, they weed through all of this garbage, but they
Hmm.
get comments, the question that we asked about, are you in favor of point restrictions on mule deer? And the responses they're going to get is, good redneck hillbillies are killing wolves and you need to not be doing that. You're going to hell. Right.
Hmm.
So, I really feel for those people who are putting these public comment surveys together and all that goes into trying to have it be productive as well. I mean, I'm assuming that because they have a professional team working on it, that those are all sorted out.
They've done it enough times now that they know the routine, hopefully, and can put up some, yeah, barriers. Well, that's good to know. Obviously, we all want our comments to count and we want it to go through and be measured there in the overall consensus. So with some of these technologies, we had talked a little bit about how they're used. And Tom had kind of hinted that some technologies are really used for wolves. Can we dive into that for just a little bit? Like
Sure.
how, because I've seen different folks ask questions about like night vision and thermals and let's just talk hunting wolves for a little bit, hunting and trapping wolves in general. What what technologies, if removed, would have a significant impact on wolf management?
From my perspective, and this is, I'll share my personal experience because
Hmm.
as a wolf trapper, I personally use transmitting trail cameras consistently and regularly. Having transmitting trail cameras on my wolf gear allows me to watch, not in real time because it always takes a while for the transmission to go through and for me to actually get the video of what the camera's doing. But it allows me to see exactly what those wolves are doing when they are at a trap site. I've been able to set those cameras up and witness when a wolf gets caught, what the behavior is of that wolf, what the behavior is of the wolves in the, surrounding that particular wolf. And yes, I could certainly obtain that information from that camera, um, after the fact, right? If it wasn't a transmitting trail camera, if it was a regular trail camera. But in order for me to access that trail camera, I have to go in there and leave my scent everywhere, right? So when we're targeting wolves specifically, we are constantly shedding skin cells and hair follicles and all this different scent everywhere that we go. And wolves are so scent cautious that they say that for every 1 minute that you're at a trap site location is a full day that a wolf won't go near it. There's been instances where that's been proven wrong on some wolves, but I think for the most part that's true. So the more time that I have to spend at my trap set location, if I've got a camera up in a tree and I've got to go there and try to pull that camera down or pull the SD card out to see what's happened in there, I'm risking spooking the wolves before I get to catch them on the next round. So whereas a transmitting trail camera shows me I've got a wolf caught, not only do I have to, do I have the opportunity to immediately go up there and get that wolf dispatched and pulled out of there as quick and clean as possible, but I'm able to do that without having to go fiddle with my camera to see what actually transpired. I can go in there, get the wolf dispatched, get it bagged up, or whatever I have to do to get it out of there quick and clean, so that when the wolf pack comes back in search of the one that's missing, they will get caught in my other traps that are already set there from when I set in the very beginning. I had that question asked to me, well, can't you do the same thing with a regular trail camera? You can still learn from what you capture on camera from a regular trail camera, but you don't know when you have something caught immediately. Let's just say if a guy's running a 48-hour or a 72-hour check time, it may be 2 days or 3 days before you actually get there to dispatch that animal. So not only is it more humane to have that opportunity to maintain those cameras and know what's going on, but furthermore, I've had over $3,000 worth of wolf traps stolen in the field. And if I have a cellular transmitting trail camera on that set, the minute somebody walks into my gear, I can go jump in the truck and race up there and try to, head them off and explain to them the importance of trapping and why I'm there and help them understand what I'm doing. Whereas otherwise, that gear just gets in the back of somebody else's truck and they're gone. I've had 3 wolves stolen from traps that I've caught where I get there and sometimes the trap is completely gone. I've seen that happen, but I've also seen where the trap is still there. It's set in a nice neat pile where they took it off the wolf's foot and the 14 feet of chain and drag and everything is sitting in a pile. There's a blood shot, there's wolf hair, there's wolf blood, there's wolf tracks everywhere, and the wolf is gone. Transmitting trail cameras allow me to know what's happening up there, and again, it's not in real time. It's, they want to claim that it is, but it typically takes 5 minutes, or 10 minutes before a image comes through. Some of the concerns over that instance, one of the stories that I heard was, the whole neighborhood's after one big giant buck, right? And everybody's been chasing this deer for years. And one guy goes out in his backyard and puts up a camera, and the buck walks into his backyard. He gets a picture of it. He's sitting at his desk. He jumps up, runs to the back door, and shoots the deer. Did he hunt that deer? Yeah, not really. So I understand their concern, but there's huge value in having the ability to use those trail cameras for targeting wolves. Thermal imaging, very first year we fought to try to get that passed specifically for targeting wolves. The first year, the director came to me and said, Justin, here we risked all of this, drama over getting this passed, and you guys didn't kill anything with thermal imaging. And I tried to help him understand thermal imaging is extremely expensive. There's very few guys that have that ability. It was illegal prior. So now that we have that, hopefully some guys are going to invest in it. It's going to take a couple of years for them to get it invested in it, learn how to use it properly, especially in cold conditions where the batteries die, all those things. Now we've got a couple of guys that have been knocking some wolves down. When you got folks, sleeping on a cattle ranch that's been hit by wolves with a thermal, in their scope in a sleeping bag all night long in the middle of winter, and they're successful at knocking some wolves down, that's a huge benefit. And without thermal imaging, you don't have that opportunity.
I was thinking the same exact thing, because same thing like with trapping. The first year, nobody was trapping wolves the first year. Like it was a learning curve. You could have gone the first couple years and said, oh, well, trapping's not effective anyways. Let's just ban it, like, because it has a chance in catching grizzly bear or lynx. They could have just banned it the second year. Oh, it's not even effective anyways. And it took time. And same thing with those thermals. Like, it's just like you said, people got to figure it out. And people still haven't figured out the dogs. I'm hoping someone does, like with the using dogs to run wolves, and so it's like, the guys in where was it? Was that Wisconsin? Like when they had that I mean, they killed it that first and only day of season. I guess they had the first and only day of season, and they filled, what was it, 200 plus wolves. That was really impressive. But it's like, same thing. It's like as soon as a couple guys start figuring it out, then maybe you're going to see quite a few different guys running dogs with wolves. And sure, I'm glad Idaho has allowed for that as an opportunity, although I haven't heard of anybody doing it yet. I'm trying to convince some of my hound hunter buddies to invest in a dog they are willing to sacrifice. But anyways, kind of going back to it though, I would say, like, I agree with you big time with the cell cameras, especially with the scent. Like that was exactly when you said, I was like, that's exactly what I was saying, where I think it's more harassment to the wildlife, especially, and I'm not even going to talk about wolves. I'm just talking about deer and elk right now. Like, I feel like I don't have, like, regardless, I'll get by. I'll get my deer and elk every year. Ban all the technology. I've been killing stuff long before this technology, so I'm not too worried about it. It's just the fact that with the cell cams, I don't have to go there and put in all my scent, like you said, like with the deer and elk. Like let's say I got a good choke cam at a watering hole. Like I don't want to have to actively go in there, put in all my scent, and disturb it. It's nice to actually stay out of there, let the animals do what they do without that human pressure. And I've also agreed with you with that, but I also do see the other side where, like in Arizona, where they had to ban trail cams. They said there'd be one watering hole because it's just a desert, and there'd be 15 cameras at one watering hole for an elk, and so it's like it's tough. But again, I go back to trail cameras don't kill elk. Like you still have to go out and do it. Like the bull I killed this year, it was a bull I saw in the winter, but I never had a trail cam photo of him. When I killed that bull elk, I had 4 guys reach out to me, say, I had trail cam photos of that bull. And it's like, okay, well, did that help them kill that bull? No. They still ended up not killing that bull. I killed the bull without a trail cam. So it does not, and you and I both know people that run trail cameras that have big animals on trail cam, and it could be 5 years down the road and they still can't kill the animal. And it's just, trail cams do not guarantee a kill. It helps your study, it helps pattern animals, but it does not, there's not a gun attached to the camera. Like, you know what I mean? Like you still have to go there and you still have to hunt the animal. But I guess, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's stay on it. I think what's cool about what I've learned from you, Tom, on the whole wolf hunting side, and you, Justin, on the wolf trapping side, is that there is much to study with the wolf itself, with these animals. And as we're talking about like how the technology can be useful for studying, it reminds me of some of the things that Adeline Richardson said. She's one of the instructors that does the hound hunting master class, and she hardly takes any cats out of the tree. They tree them, but she studies them, and she learns a lot from them. And I think a lot of that can compare to the trail camera's use, especially with wolves. Like how much more biologists and hunters are able to understand wolves and be able to study them just through these trail camera videos and pictures, understand their behavior. Like seeing the videos of Justin's trail camera videos in the master class, where they're like investigating his sets and stuff, and like watching them just kind of move around and like communicate just through the video. I'm like, wow, these are short clips, but you sure.
My favorite video I don't think it was you, Justin, but it was someone else, wasn't it, that had the wolf step in the trap and the wolf didn't even sense the trap?
Yeah.
Like it was still, yeah. I love that video because probably everybody thinks that when a wolf steps in a trap, it's like, ow, I'm in pain, and it's running around in a circle. That's probably what most people think is happening.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was happening. Honestly, that was my genuine impression until I actually got some catches on video, and it blew my mind at the behavior and how they act and reacted was completely different than anything I ever expected. That first big male that I caught in the trap on video, he steps in the trap, and he
Oh, that was you then.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so the clip that you're talking about, I shared that.
Mhm.
I wasn't the trapper that actually took that footage. It was
Okay.
a well-known individual. I won't mention his name out of respect for him, who shared that video with me. Who he's anyhow works for the government, but um, yeah, just very very interesting learning opportunity. The wolf that I got on video, he steps in the trap and you hear him make a little squeak like it shocked him, but his tail is up. He's wagging his tail. He reaches down and he bites at that trap a couple of times, and you see him like trying to understand it. He's grabbing one side of it, trying to figure out how to make it let go of himself. And then when he decides he's going to move, instead of pulling away like playing tug of war with it with his paw, he walks forward and he grabs a hold of the chain and he picks the chain up in his mouth and he pulls the drag out of the view of the camera with the drag in his mouth, like if you were playing tug of war with your dog.
Oh, really?
And I just was blown away that that's what happened. So he backs out and he walks down over the hill. The next one that I got on camera, I didn't get the trap actually closing, but I got the second before it did, and then there's that pause, right? So it's like a 30-second video clip. Well, the pause happened to be right when the trap fired, but the next clip is that wolf backing out, stretching the chain tight, and she walks forward, grabs that chain in her mouth, and then pulls on the chain with her mouth and backs out of the screen. So two
Oh,
different wolves that I actually got on video doing that. It's just
they're both on drags.
both on drags, yeah.
That just goes to the point though. Like these things in on video, we can study and understand how they interact with traps, how they interact with their surroundings and with each other. And maybe now that you might see a wolf engage with a chain or a drag in that way, maybe you might set up your drag a little bit different. Just who knows? I don't know. Maybe to shorten that distance that it ends up running off. But there's a whole lot that we can learn by using the technology. We can learn about these species, and I think what's interesting, Justin, you've said before, with a lot of these traps that you use and wolf trappers use, is they're the same traps that biologists are using to catch and study wolves and other critters. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, just so people understand, like these are not the kind of traps that are in the movies or or what they're anticipating. There's a video, I'm referencing a video. Justin has a video where he shoves his hand in a wolf trap, and it has over 10 million views now across platforms. So you've probably seen it at some point here. And the comments on it are hilarious. People saying, "Well, that's not my grandpa's trap." So, what's the perception and what's the reality?
So yeah, the perception is created by the media and what people who don't like trapping or even any wolves being managed want to portray the message that trapping is cruel and barbaric and outdated and all these other things because they have no idea how much trapping is used in basic modern day biology, right? We could not put collars on animals without trapping them, period. Right. I mean, unless you're in an area where you can fly without running an animal to death or to too much, to a intense level of stress and dart it from a chopper or a plane, your only mechanism of really obtaining an animal to be able to put a collar on is to trap them. So people don't realize that that's how wolves were brought here. Some of them were shot out of aircraft and darted, but others were trapped with the very same traps that we use now. The most popular wolf trap, it's nicknamed the Jack Whitman Special after a very special biologist named Jack Whitman, who was a phenomenal predator biologist and studied animals all over the world. I had the utmost respect for Jack. May he rest in peace. Unfortunately, we lost him this last year, but you know, that trap setup was named the Jack Whitman Special. He was a biologist that was using that very same trap to capture and collar and study wolves and do transplant programs with them. So yeah, that I think that modern day television portrays traps to be these huge steel grizzly bear traps that would take huge vices to even be able to set them in the first place with these, big jagged teeth. Most people, I think, have the impression that those big jagged teeth are intended to be mean and cruel and break bones and all these things. They don't realize that when they put teeth on traps in the first place, it's to lessen the possibility of damage. Because when there's teeth on that jaw, when it closes around a body part, that disallows it from being able to slide back and forth in the jaws of the trap, which would cause a wear spot and potentially be able to split the skin if it was left too long. Having teeth on a trap is actually to hold it solid so that that body part can't move back and forth and cut itself. For those that don't know, but
And there's also a gap too, right? Like there's also the gap.
so there is. So in a lot of modern day traps, it's offset jaws. So there's actually a space in there. Some people believe that that's going to allow additional blood flow so that there's not numbness in the foot, which would potentially lead to possibly chewing of the foot. Although in more, really researching the studies, raccoons are one of the only animals that actually self-mutilate. So, all these stories of, oh, well, my grandpa caught this and it chewed its foot off to get away. All those types of stories I really think are really far-fetched. There's very few animals that will actually mutilate their own bodies, even under the most stressful conditions. But yes, modern day traps, they are scrutinized and reviewed and studied by veterinarians, like world-renowned veterinarians and game departments. There's huge departments that focus on ensuring that modern traps are humane and that they don't damage animals. And one of the biggest reasons is because biologists are using those traps to capture, collar, release, and study the very same critters. So when I get up on stage and I shove my hand in my wolf trap and people's eyes get this big around because they expected it to cut my hand off, I don't know how else to tell the story. I can talk till I'm blue in the face, or I can stuff my hand in my trap so they can see it. And then when I take my hand, out of the trap, there's usually a little mark on my hand, but there's no blood running down my arm. It's not like this big extravagant thing. And so it just tells the message a whole lot better than I can in words.
Yeah. Other thing I would think of too is just like, imagine you and I being on all fours and walking on a gravel road, how much that would hurt our hands and feet. And a wolf does it flawlessly. Look at of all the stuff that the wolves step on a daily basis. They're running across cold creeks. They're running on jagged rocks. They're running, like they are very sturdy animals comparative to us. And so for you to put your hand in a trap, I mean, I could promise you, if you're walking on all fours, you're going to be pretty uncomfortable.
I've got really sissy hands and feet. I can't even walk barefoot anywhere, much less on gravel. And those things, you're absolutely right. They run down the road in those sharp rocks all the time, across shale rocks. They run on ice all the time. They're very, very durable animals. So yeah, but it's not comfortable. I'm not going to lie. I don't like sticking my hand in a trap, but I don't know how else to tell the story.
You got to hold it. Got to hold the wolf. So.
People are like, look, his face is just changing color a little bit.
Yeah.
On the comments, like, how many times did you watch that video? Yeah, they've watched that video so many times. You say this quite often. I forgot the percentage. I should remember by now. But what's the percentage success rate for wolf hunting and wolf trapping?
It's less than 1/4%, and I base that off tag sales. So some people question me on that. They're like, "Well, okay, yeah, but not everybody who buys a tag is actually going out targeting wolves, because some guys buy a wolf tag to have in their pocket." Okay, so even if that wasn't the case, still less than 1/4% of the people who buy tags actually get to use them. So in 2021, I did a bunch of like a deep dive into what are the stats, right? There were 74,041 wolf tags sold between Idaho and Montana. You want to know why states require tags? Because they're making millions of dollars off of selling tags. 74,041 wolf tags were sold between the two states. 42 people took more than 2 wolves. 90% of those guys were trapping.
That's crazy.
So
you just discouraged a lot of wolf hunters. I'm just kidding.
So folks like Tom, who gets it done on a regular basis, there's a reason that Tom has a master class on wolf hunting, and I strongly encourage everybody to check it out. There's very few people who consistently take wolves with a rifle, but those who dedicate themselves to it with the same energy and passion that they do other species, I think, can find the very same success, but you have to want it. You have to be willing to do the work. Tom didn't become a phenomenal elk or mule deer hunter by, buying a tag and going out for a half a season and saying, oh, well, it just didn't work out for me, right? He dedicated a lot of time and effort and energy into learning his quarry and the landscape and how they utilize it, the habitat, all the things that come with it. If a guy's willing to put in the time, you can learn how to be successful targeting wolves just the same.
Yeah, when you
Yeah,
were
and
saying
that's
those
true.
percentages, like in the course, I was like, oh wow, that my respect for Tom just way up here for, and no less respect for the wolf trappers.
Well, the wolf trappers, the one thing I'll say this with the wolf trappers is the guys who do figure it out start putting down the wolf numbers, like, and obviously same thing here. There's guys that just, they're not social media guys. They don't want their name out there, but I know one individual in particular, he's got 100 wolves down, over 100 wolves down. And it's like, he's got it figured out. He's got it dialed, but most guys don't. And so, but so for those, I don't want to discourage anyone who wants to get a wolf trapping. If you figure it out, you can knock it down. Travis is actually pretty good at it. The problem is he's just so busy. But anytime, like, his first year was a big learning curve. He spent a whole season trapping. He caught one wolf. But after that, he's been like, he'll have a time where he's just like, oh, like, this is close to my job. And there is like two wolves running through here. Let me set a trap. He'll set one trap and catch that wolf or one of those wolves. I'm like, that's pretty impressive, Trav. Like, he's got it, you know what I mean? And it's like, if Travis just was like a lot of these guys who take the full, um, the full winter off to do it, I think Travis would have the number. Like, he's good with it, and so he's got it down. And so, but for me, it's just like it's the whole married to a trap line, and that's just tough. I mean, I give.
I go when I go hunting with you, you can't sit still for like more than 10 minutes. It's like, let's go. We got to go this
Well, it's just tough. He said,
go check over here. We got to go check over here.
well, just watching Travis, and I know I'm just preaching to the choir, especially Justin, because he knows the feeling. But I'm just trying to share it to everybody and how hard it is to trap. But you set all this iron in the ground, right? And that can take, that could take over a full day. It could take a couple days to set, traps in the ground. And after that, you have to check your traps for a week. Yeah. And so a week. And then you have to check those traps every 3 days. And that seems like, oh, that's plenty of time. It really isn't. Like, because it can take over a full day to check all those traps. And then the clock starts over again. Then you have to check the traps again, and you have to check the traps again. And then if something comes up where you're like, let's say like my wife, she's like, oh, I have a party coming on this weekend. I need you to be here. It's like, sorry, I can't, honey. I got to check these traps. And Travis was in a situation where his wife was giving birth to a child. And so he had to find somebody to check his traps, because he's like, I'm in the hospital with, like, sorry, honey, I can't go see our new firstborn, child. I got to check traps. Like, you know what I mean? Like you literally are dedicated to it. And to take traps out, it's like, oh, if I can't check traps for a week, let me pull all my iron. It's like, no, because you spent so much time putting all the traps out and setting everything right. Like, you don't want to touch them. You want to leave them out there. Check them every 3 days. It's nice if you can like tag team it with another person, but man, and then the stress of like actually having a wolf come through, step on the trap, it's frozen to the ground, and then walks off, and you're like, I've waited a month and a half for this to happen. And that was my one moment. And I messed up. Or it's not you, the weather. It got warm, got cold, now the trap's frozen to the ground, and you're like, oh, really? Really? You want to do this to me right now? Yeah. You start questioning life.
Just curious, like, is it possible? It probably is possible, but have you guys heard of it often where you have someone that goes wolf hunting and wolf trapping at the same time and finds themselves successful in either scenario?
Yeah. Yeah, there's people that in southern Idaho where in some of that wilderness area where it gets pretty difficult to hunt them, they'll do that quite a bit. And so I know some guys. How about you, Justin?
some of
Yeah, absolutely. There's guys, and there's a lot of times where I'm running my traps. I won't hunt them right where my gear is because I know if I get one in a trap, I've got pretty good odds of getting numbers. Whereas if I'm hunting them, who knows, if I'm going to get just one shot or more. And so I won't hunt them specifically where my gear is, but in other areas, especially if I want them to go to where my gear is, I'll go target them in the other areas that I know that I can't afford to have gear in because I can't get in and out of those spots. I'll go hunt them in those places in the interim for sure. And I think there's some guys that are being successful about it. You're talking about knowing individuals that have broke 100. It was really exciting to hear. We've got another member that just hit the 100 wolf
Oh, awesome.
this
That's
last
cool to
month, which
hear.
is really awesome. So we've got lots of guys that are over 50 wolves, and some of those are a mix of hunted and shot. Some of our president and our vice president of F4WM both have hunted and trapped numbers of wolves, and yeah, there's guys out there getting it done for sure.
That's awesome. Well, we got some of the best hunters and wolf trappers on the podcast today. So it's cool to be talking to both of you. I feel honored. But it's amazing to learn from both of you guys, and there are so many opportunities for listeners, those who are hearing from you right now, to go and learn even more through your guys' master classes. So for those that don't know, Tom has the wolf hunting masterclass, and that's available on 360. Justin has the wolf trapping masterclass. So those are both available at 360sportsman.org. There's also a bundle where if you're interested in getting both of those, there's a wolf management bundle that you can go find on the website. And that one also includes a general trapping masterclass with both Vinny Ranucci and Andrew Levick, who Vinny is also a longtime wolf trapper and very successful at that. So you can learn how to trap, then learn how to get into wolf trapping, and do what the few do with wolf hunting. It's really cool to see these courses come together and this information be in a place that it is accessible for folks, for people like me who want to learn how to do these things and get into it and feel like I can pull you guys up on video at any moment and learn. You have so many different scenarios that you walk through and are willing to share. So I definitely encourage folks to go check those out.
Taylor, one of the things I just want to throw out there for everybody to mention, even if it's wolf trapping that you're focused on specifically, taking Tom's course, I personally took that course myself and learned a bunch. Because different wolf packs act and behave differently from one to the next, I think that you can learn just as much about trapping wolves from Tom's course, listening to his experience chasing wolves, as you can from my trapping course in relation to wolf behavior. And so I strongly encourage everybody, to look at all of the courses as a group. I think that there's a lot to be learned from that.
Yeah.
And vice versa too. I've same thing here. Like a lot of my knowledge in wolf hunting has come from trappers, and and some of the areas that they're trapping, I respectfully give them the space they need. I don't like to hunt wolves particular in places where like there's active trapping going on, but after the trapping season's over and the hunting season's still going on, I get a lot of information, and that's really helpful. And so I've learned a lot from trappers too. And so it's like vice versa. Like we all can learn from each other, and we have learned from each other, and we have this knowledge all organized on these courses to cut that learning curve. I mean, for me, I felt like it was for me to hunt wolves, it was a 4-year learning curve. My first wolf ever was a piece of cake. I actually thought wolves were easy to hunt. Second day of wolf hunting in 2011, and I shot a wolf. And I was like, this is so easy. Come on, guys. And I don't know what your deal is. And I sold it to the tax nurse. He's like, and it was one of the prettiest wolves I ever killed. He's like, you sure don't want to keep that? I'm like, I'll get another one. It was like 4 years down the road till I saw my next wolf. I was like, what? And they're everywhere. Why can't I kill them? And just like you, I was like, you kind of like what your intro was, what you said earlier. I was like, the reason why I tell people, I'm actually not a wolf hunter. I'm a pissed off elk hunter. That's what I am. I'm like, what has happened? But then you can't help. But after I got into wolf hunting, actually gained more respect for the wolf. I learned about the wolf, and now it's like, and even the trappers, you talk to some of these guys like we were talking about who got high numbers of wolves, and they'll tell you not openly because they know uh, it's controversial amongst other hunters, but they'll secretly say, I kind of don't want the wolves to be gone. I kind of want there to still be wolves. Like, you learn to gain a respect for them as a hunter and as a trapper. And the goal is not to exterminate them. I think a lot of us felt like that at first. We want to exterminate them. They're just killing all our moose, they're killing all our elk. And and yesterday, I'll be honest, I'm like, I kind of want that wolf back on, but there comes to a point where we're like, in some way we have to respect the wolf. But going back to this though, you have to be aggressive with wolves because they reproduce so fast. It's not like a mountain lion where, mountain lion, you can control a mountain lion population pretty well with hounds. Like, we do have mountain lions. I think Idaho has a great number of mountain lions, but I feel like they're controlled very well to the point you can be selective, you can pass them up, and wolves are just a little bit different. And so we respect the wolf. We don't want them extinct, but when we manage them, we got to be aggressive with it.
That's a great point, Tom. A lot of people asked the question, and especially in the very beginning, they were upset because they said the department had agreed to manage wolves the same way they do bears and lions. Well, they don't understand that wolves and bears and lions are completely different species and with completely different behaviors. Bears and lions have 1 to 2 cubs every second to third year, and those cubs stay with them. And bears are hibernating in our ground for 7 months out of the year. So, they aren't even having an impact on the landscape the rest of the time. Yes, they're hard on calves and fawns, absolutely. They're a huge predator. But when you only have 1 to 2 cubs every, second to third year, that's a whole lot different than having 7 pups every single year with some packs having more than 1 litter. So you end up with 20 wolves in a pack for any period of time. That's a ton of mouths to feed. And that's the complication of managing wolves. And I think you're absolutely spot on. A lot of guys went into this with the thought that they really hated wolves. They despised them for what they were witnessing take place in our backcountry. But everybody that I know that's pursued wolves for very long has grown to have a huge level of respect for them. And I'll never forget when I killed my first bull that was over 300 inches. I was so excited because it was a lifetime goal that I had set for myself, and I'd worked so hard and I'd put so much time and years of dedication into trying to learn everything. And I got there, and it was really exciting. When I got the second one and the third one and the fourth one, it was like, yeah, okay, I got it. I got it figured out. When I killed my first 170-inch muley buck in North Idaho, that's a big deer for here. And yeah, same thing. I was so just elated. I was on cloud 9. I'd reached my goal. And then when I got the second one and the third one, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I got them figured out. Every single wolf I take, it's like the biggest critter I've ever taken in my whole life. The excitement level, the accomplishment, the feeling of accomplishment, they really are, from my perspective, the pinnacle of my outdoor career.
Yeah. Well, it's still weird to think, but I think it was back in 2020. I archered I don't remember what year it was, but I archered a bull shortly after I killed a wolf. And I remember thinking, like, this is no joke. I shot a wolf with a rifle, and then a week later, I kill an elk with a bow. And I was walked up to the elk. I'm like, I was not near as excited with this elk as I was with the wolf a week ago that I shot. Like, it was actually this downer. I'm like, really? Like, why didn't I get as excited? And I still got excited, but what I'm sharing is that, like, wolf hunting is like when everything comes together, it's next level. Like, you'll sit there. Sometimes I'm sit there in disbelief. Like, I'll sit there after a wolf situation, calling a pack. Maybe one dies, maybe a couple, but I'll sit down and I'll sit there and just like, I have to take a moment. I'm just like, I can't believe this happened. Like, I think of that every time, like every time and I've seen a lot of wolves in the wild. And I talk about the ones I've killed, but I don't emphasize the ones that I miss. I missed a lot over the years. They don't stand around a lot. And, and I don't want to always think of those ones too much because they do give me nightmares. But seeing those, like, it's really cool, the experiences that I've had with wolves. And I'm sure you could say the same thing about your experience with wolves too, Justin, right? Just like the experiences that you have with them. You're just like, wow, these animals are insane. Wolves are insane.
It's a whole different level. Whole
Yeah.
different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best thing I can say is that you got two of the best people right here. You're gonna be able to learn where to go, how to go,
Yeah, we're gonna drop a
and
pin for you guys. You got a pin? We got well. Just kidding.
yeah, go look in the description for the
Yeah.
cornets.
I love that. Hey, can you give me a point where I can kill a wolf pack? I'm like, can you send me that pin? Can you send Justin that pin right now? He kind of needs it right now. Just kidding. It was cool to see. What was it? It was Jacob, right? That just
Yeah.
because and I want to explain to people this. So Jacob, he's a hardcore. He's killed a lot of wolves, but I feel like every wolf guy at some point goes through a dry spell, and he's killed a lot of wolves, but he's went through a dry spell, and it's good to see him get one again. And so it's just like, yes, like it just shows you how I don't know. It's just cool to see him do that.
It's
And
incredible. Jacob is
Yeah.
a great friend, and he is one of the most caring, giving, loving men I've ever met in my life. He's the best friend to anybody who he's around at all times. And he, back in the day, he would come and help me brush trails out to get in and out of where I was trapping wolves before he ever started trapping wolves. He was hiking in and packing wolves out with me, when I'd connect. He worked his tail off trying to learn, the ins and outs. And he picked it up quick and he figured it out and he got some wolves knocked down. And so, yeah, he went to this dry spell. One of the things I think that is even cooler than the fact that he finally connected again is his daughter got to go with him. And so at this point, both of his daughters have got to go with him and see live wolves and traps and go through the whole process. And yeah, my hat's off to him. I'm so excited for him. It was really cool to get that phone call.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love to see that. Love to see
That's what it's
success.
about. It's like when you know what you're doing, then teach others, bring in the rising generation, because that will
I
But
change.
I just also want to let people know that the struggle, even with experienced hunters and trappers, just if you feel like you're struggling, you're alone. You're not alone. Even like sometimes I feel like I have it dialed down, and all of a sudden I'll go through a dry spell, and I'm like, "What am I doing wrong?" And we all go through it. And so I just want to let people know it's all right. Everything's going to be okay, and it'll still be a learning curve, but the master class, it's going to cut that learning curve from you and get you started on the right track. So I just want to be clear with people that when you take this master class, don't expect a dead wolf on the first day. Just
That goes with anything. Like
not like the way it was for me on my first wolf. Not like that. That was yeah. That was. I'll take those any day of the week. I just like, wow, yeah, this is not that hard. Why is everybody saying this is hard? It's not hard.
I was going to say, I think that's a great point to make, Tom, is that, for people to not get an unrealistic expectation, if somebody thinks that there is a magic potion out there that's going to magically, allow you to take a half a dozen wolves in a year's time, could that happen? Absolutely, it could. But it's not the commonplace. It's not, the wolves are hard. There's a reason that the success rate is so low. And, having the master class, I can tell you that having attended the Wolfer Summit that we put on for the F4WM, which this year happens to be August 6th to the 9th for anybody who's interested, where we bring in a lot of presenters with a ton of experience. Attending that event, taking Tom's hunting wolves course, and applying all of that stuff to my own knowledge certainly gives me an edge and a boost, and I think a leg up on a lot of folks. The 10 years of experience of suffering through the hard lessons, everything from watching a wolf pull its foot out of a trap in front of me while I had my pistol in my hand and could have dispatched it and wasn't quick enough,
That would
to
hurt.
it still hurts me just thinking about it. My heart just went to setting traps and not knowing what I was doing or how to set them properly, and walking down there and having two wolves in traps that had both pulled their foot out of the trap, to walking in. And the month of December, this is one I talk about a lot. During the month of December alone, one year I had 18 wolves step on frozen traps that didn't fire.
Oh, ouch.
18 different wolves. And so, what the master class should do for every person that takes it is eliminate that 10 years of struggle that I went through, because every lesson that I've learned, I poured into the class, and I'm hoping to help people, bypass all of that hard-earned lessons. But again, I think that it's important to be realistic. Just because you take the course doesn't mean you're going to go stack up 10 wolves, in your first season. There's still a learning curve there, and wolves are hard. It's important that people realize that, because if you go into it with the mindset that this is going to be easy because I've taken the master class, I think that you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. It's important that you're in it for the long haul and that you're committed, because that's what leads to success.
And I've said the same thing to people too, like guys who get into wolf hunting for the first time and they want to treat them like they're a dumb animal. The one thing I'll say is, like, if you treat them like they're a dumb animal, you're not going to kill any. Treat them like they're the most intelligent animal in the woods, because they are, and they're going to outsmart you. Know that, and when you go into it that way, your odds of success are going. That's where the increase jumps, and having an opportunity. The biggest thing is having the opportunity. And I could still, although I go on and off with, sometimes I have a drive spell. Every year I have opportunities on wolves, and so like then that's hard to do. If you can get yourself in a position to have an opportunity on a wolf to kill, if it's hunting or trapping, that's important. The thing is to be able to make it happen and to execute. But always treat them like they're the smartest animal in the woods, because they are. And there's a lot of wolf experts online. We joke about that as well, right? There's a lot of people that have never hunted wolves before, and they tell you, this is what you need to do. I heard this worked. And I've heard some of the most hilarious things. Like, what was it? A guy the other day, he's like, oh, I heard if you just get a bucket of blood and you just put holes in it and you just spin around in a circle in one spot, guaranteed. And it's just like, what? Can you repeat that again? Like, okay, like if you put a deer out in the woods, in Idaho you can bait, for traps. You put a deer out in the woods and it's cleaned up. Those wolves are gone. Like, and they can clean a deer up in a split, like a drop of blood in the snow. That's not. Anyways, you could go on and on with the comments, but I've heard it all. I've heard it all. There's a lot of wolf experts online, so you just want to make sure you're getting the right information. And so we've gathered it for you. You don't have to take the comments on Facebook to heart, because half of or the majority of those you should probably not be listening to at all.
I would agree. That's we definitely have a consensus on that topic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wolf experts out there that have never even seen a wolf, much less taken them.
Yeah.
I think what is cool though is when they do get the master class, they can also feel free to ask you questions. Like, there's been a lot of people who have sent in questions on the app or over email or text, and have reached out on Instagram, and Tom and Justin have both been very generous with their time and replying back, and just making sure that those questions do get answered. And it is helpful, because then from there we can add more lessons. Like, we see certain questions come in frequently and we're like, oh yeah, why not just make a video for that? And that helps us develop the course more and more to what you want it to be. So yeah, I love the classes. Again, it might not get you a wolf on your first outing, but it is going to teach you those strategies to improve your odds and put you closer into the percentage of that success rate. So thank you guys for being willing to share it all and put it in one spot. I hope that and know that people are learning from you as we speak, watching those videos, and hopefully can bring some wolves down and balance out those populations. And just a reminder to also go and support organizations like the Foundation for Wildlife Management and other groups out there that are fighting for science-based management. Make sure you get out there and take care of that.
And I want to say this about the foundation. It has done more for Idaho and wolf management than any. I mean, I don't want to give. There's a lot of organizations out there that have credit, but the foundation has done more for wolves than anyone. And I really appreciate what the foundation has done. And I always emphasize that to people and how important this foundation is. Even if you yourself are not wolf hunting or trapping, just being a member is big. It's so helpful in keeping hunters and trappers out in the woods and needing to do what they need to do. And so So, like I said, regardless if you're a hunter or a trapper, if you support wolf management, become a member. Like it's so important.
You're
I
needed.
appreciate that, Tom. I couldn't agree more. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that most people don't have the ability to run a trap line, as an example. Most people don't have what it takes to be in the woods enough to dedicate their time to removing wolves. But the one thing that you can do is support the foundation, because your $40 a year membership goes right in the pocket of somebody who's out there busting their butt to make sure that we still have wildlife on the landscape, other wildlife on the landscape, for you and I and our kids to get to enjoy. I try to explain it to people like this, while they and myself may be sitting on our couch playing with our kids on Thanksgiving Day, or sitting around watching football with our buddies, there's somebody out there married to a trap line or trudging through knee-deep snow, desperately trying to knock wolves down so that we still have elk to hunt, and mule deer and moose and other species to enjoy. And they need your help. That's the thing. Every single person can be part of the solution, and that's the benefit of this program. It creates an opportunity for everyone to be a part of the solution. You don't have to be out there actively targeting wolves. If you're a member and you happen to remove a wolf, yeah, it's great, because you could get reimbursed up to $2,000 for every one that you take. But the real true benefit there is that it provides an opportunity for those who don't get out and target wolves to be able to be a part of the solution, and we don't get it done without them.
And if you don't care about any of this, at least just call your state representatives to change the Equal Access to Justice Act.
Attaboy.
If you don't care about anything else, at least just call
Well,
someone.
I'm glad you informed me on that because I didn't know anything about that, and it's just like it's so important to inform people because we sometimes you feel like your hands tied. It's like, gosh, why is there still a battle on this? Why is the endangered species I mean, it just seems like in my perspective as an outsider feels like the Endangered Species Act is being abused and by the wrong people. And it's just like, we care about animals. And you said it so yourself. I always feel like I even said it the other day. I was with my dad. I'm like, why do I feel like we're working and trying to save the wrong animals? We're trying to like the animals that are actually struggling, we're neglecting. And I was sad to hear this about the mountain. Okay, maybe this is another topic the other day. I was like, going to talk about the mountain goats. So I was like, maybe
last thing.
put a pause on that. But don't get me started. It just bothered me when I said, when have we done our last study on mountain goats? And they gave me like teen years, like several years since the last time they've done a study on the mountain goats. And I was like, we'll sit and spend millions on bears, millions on wolves, pretty much on all predators. But the ungulates that are struggling, no funds for those. Oh yeah, we're broke. I'm sorry, I won't get into it.
I won't get into it.
I'd
Story for another day.
You're baiting me into a conversation that I desperately want to latch onto.
He's
So
rage
know
baiting
it.
you.
Should we 10 minutes?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
Mountain goats is a huge
I care
topic
about the
for me.
mountain goats as much as you do, Justin, so let's hear it.
Yes. So, my big thing, my whole life goal is to have what I consider to be a trophy caliber of each of our species that we have in Idaho on my wall before I kick the bucket, before I can't hunt anymore. Right. And so I've been very successful in a lot of those things. I applied for my mountain goat tag for forever until they took it away. And when they took it away, I asked them specifically, like, what was the reason? Why do we not have a mountain goat tag in the panhandle anymore? You know what they told me? They said, well, Montana is harvesting too many goats out of the same population, and so Idaho can't afford to harvest any. And I said, well, then make them alternate. They can take goats one year, we can take goats one year. Obviously, states don't work together in that regard. But fast forward a couple of years, I started videoing goats, specifically trying to get our goat tags back. When you can go up and you can video 14 goats in a band and go 2 drainages over and video another 7 goats there, and then drive to another location and video another 5 or 6 goats there, and then they come back and say, well, we don't have 50 goats, in the entire panhandle. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, there's all the goats, anyway, you can name all these different places that have goats. So I started actually sending in video data of goats, trying to help them understand, like, we got to have enough goats to have a tag. Well, we ended up getting our goat tag back. When they decided to pull it, the justification they gave us was because there was a biologist in Canada who had made the decision out of the blue, from my perspective, I'm sure he had reasons, that for you to have a huntable goat population, you had to have over 100 goats in the band of goats rather than 50, which is what we had always operated on. That 50 goats was what allowed us to have a tag in the panhandle. So when they pulled it, I asked the exact same question. Well, what is the estimate and when was the last count done? Oh, well, that was back in 1980, whatever it was. At that time, it was
They
like
said 18 years. They told me 18 years.
it was ample a long time ago, and I was furious. This was back in my I was the guy back then that just wanted to kick the table down and beat down the door, right? So I was pretty frustrated, and I voiced my opinion pretty strongly. So anyhow, they gave us the tag back without a count. They took it away without a count in the first place. They gave it back without a count. They took it away again without a count. And then they claimed that they were starting to do some more studies and they were going to look into some things. Dang it, we've got goats and I want to be able to hunt goats at home. I don't want to have to travel to get my goat in my lifetime. If they're not doing good, then for crying out loud, let's throw some money at it. Let's create some habitat. Let's do some predator control. Let's work on the lion population that's causing problems with them. And let's, build a healthy goat herd.
And that's where I'm at too. For what I understand, and you could correct me on the study, but I've read it a while ago, but they did the study. They found out there was 100 goats, but they came up with another reason. And I think it was the mortality rate of the kids, I think is what it was. And I think that was their other reason. Like it was a 10% success or something like that. But I was the same way. I'm like, there's ranges I know growing up where all the old timers there used to be goats all over this mountain and they're gone. Like you can't find a goat there now. And it's like, well, here's a vacant mountain here where there's no goats. And I feel like if we, and back in the day, for people that not know, and I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, we're not talking about wolves now, but it's a species of animal that we care about. They used to hunt goats like deer. It was a general tag. You could buy a tag and it was either you can hunt a goat or a deer. Like it was like, how the whitetail mule deer is, like with that tag, the general tag. It was like you could hunt a whitetail or a mountain goat. It's up to you with that tag. And so some guys preferred goats and they would go every single year and kill mountain goats. Well, long story short, one of these mountain ranges pretty much got decimated. And so it's like, well, yeah, if you hand out a tag any hunter can buy a mountain goat tag, then that's going to happen. I mean, certain parts of Canada, you can still do that, but there's just not a lot of people hunting them and there's a lot of terrain up there. But I'm the same way. It's like, okay, if we really care about the mountain goat, like what can we do? What's the next step? Like I'm the same way in your head. I'm like, let's get this something done. Like, are we just going to let this never happen again? Or like, what steps do we need to do to get ourselves a hunting season again? I actually filmed the last goat killed in this area.
Wow.
I filmed the last one. And so I kind of feel like it was a cool experience to get the hunt, killed a 9 3/4 inch Billy, dandy Billy. And yeah, my friend drew it and I'm glad. I mean, it was a cool experience, but it's just like, it was a shame that after that year they shut it down. I'm like, dude, we were in goats every single day. We literally we were actually so bored with it. We're like, we were seeing goats every time we went out, but we were waiting for the later seasons to get thicker hide. And so we waited till the very end to get a Billy with its thick winter coat. And so, but it's like, there's goats all over. And like you said, if you count pretty much, at least in the Selkirks, if you look in every drainage, like you got a minimum of a dozen goats. Like if you go across the line, like I can find goats anywhere. I have trail cams and it's just in the thick timber country. I got trail cams and I'm like, I've never seen goats in here. All of a sudden I get a trail cam of like a huge herd. And I'm like, I didn't know there was goats in here.
Yeah.
And I would have never known without a trail cam.
I've been really shocked in all of the camera work that I do for wolves. It's showed me a lot of wildlife. One of those that surprises the heck out of me is mountain goats. I've seen mountain goats show up in places. There's not a rock for, I swear, 15 miles.
And they just randomly show up. Yeah.
They just randomly show up. They come hiking out, they come walking out of some closed road somewhere. And it just blows my mind that there's goats in some of the places that there are. So I know that they're dispersing and things, but Yeah. Anyhow, it's easy to go down other rabbit holes, but obviously
Yeah.
Tom and I are both very passionate about a lot of different wildlife species.
Yeah, well, that was good. We'll put a pin on that one. Talk about that later. But
If there's an organization that can bring back that hunt, it'd be the Foundation for Wildlife Management. I've thought about that, like how the organization has done a lot with wolf management. If it can, over time, we talked about scaling and expansion, kind of expand to different species in other ways, right? Maybe not reimbursements on mountain goats. It'd be for a different purpose and objective, but if it can do something like that, that would be really cool to see with some of those other struggling
You
species.
know, in that regard, Taylor, the department at one point came to us and asked if we would be willing to consider promoting mountain lion harvest. And mountain
Uh-huh.
lions are tremendously harsh on mountain goats. It's one of their top predators.
Yeah.
And my request at that time was, bring me the data, show me how many lions we need to take from what area and for what reason, so that when we have that conversation with the houndsman organizations that we've worked really hard to build working relationships with,
Hmm.
we aren't making enemies of our friends. And it never really transpired into anything. But if that really is the case, that kid mortality is what's hindering, us being able to have a viable population that's huntable, by gosh, I would be excited to entertain that opportunity to.
look at what this. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I would look at it because I thought that's what the issue was, and so I'm kind of going based on what I remember. But yeah, you'll have to look at it to check. But I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I think it was the kids, and so
Whatever it happens to be, I'm just, I guess, in my own mentality in life, I'm kind of one of those guys that's, I'll follow any leader.
yeah.
If they lead, if they're willing to lead and they're a strong leader, I'll follow anybody off the end of the earth. If they're willing to follow, I'll jump out front and lead. I don't care, but I don't like sitting idle, and I don't like seeing things like that transpire without, making an effort to try to fix it. So I kind of have this lead follower, get out of my way, we got work to do kind of a mentality.
Well, that's good. That's how things get done. That's got to be frustrating watching, like what you're doing. I mean, for someone who likes to see things get done, that's got to be frustrating for you to see all these, trying to pass these laws and regulations, and then watching things bounce back at you it just pretty much slaps you back in the face, and you're like, what? That's got to be frustrating.
Well,
You learn patience.
Yeah.
but if there's an apparatus and a structure, I do think that the foundation is positioned for something like that. I like if it can help with wolves, I would think that there would be a next species that could really help. Maybe part of that might be like the grizzly at some point if that gets delisted or
I think that's the biggest topic right now. I feel like if we can get the grizzly delisted, which is very much on topic right now, I feel like if we can get the grizzly delisted, then that's going to open a big door in managing wolves and accessing backcountry ground. I mean, like there's just so much that just the simple grizzly bears being listed it's just caused so much chaos. It's not just the fact about protecting the bears. It's like it's made it hard to do anything. It's made it hard to log and use our own resources. And this is me as a logger. I know
you're
that
spoiling the next episode, Tom, with Joe.
oh yeah, fire, which is causing fire danger, which is just this bad. Like we're collapsing our own ecosystem trying to protect one animal. And sorry. Okay, we're done. Okay, we're done. I'm done. I'm sorry.
We're worried about cow farts polluting the atmosphere, but we're allowing wildfires to burn, huge, extensive, extravagant pieces of timber. Right now, we're allowing beetle kill to annihilate timber sales that could have been productive, and not only be productive for mankind and usability of that resource, but also it's destroying habitat. That could all be wildlife habitat, but instead it's sitting out there rotting and turning into these blowdown piles you can't even crawl through.
It
Yeah.
all comes back to the ESA.
That's right.
Dun dun dun. Stay tuned for Grizzly Edition on the next episode.
All right.
This has really been great. I appreciate the opportunity. This has been fun.
Thank you, Justin, for joining us. We appreciate it, and hopefully that everybody's now educated on this matter, and we can get a lot more help. Oregon, Washington, everybody needs to get on board. I can't stress that enough. Like you mentioned before, power in numbers, and I feel like that's just everybody needs to take a stand like that. I mean, I feel like that's what happened with if we, like, I truly do believe, like, without the foundation, we'd be in a rougher spot and we just wouldn't have the voice that we do. So Justin, are pretty much have been the mouthpiece for so many wolf hunters and people who truly believe in management. So thank you so much for what you do.
It's an honor to get to be that voice, Tom. I truly feel blessed to get to serve our community. It truly is an honor. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you for your time tonight, Justin, and for everything you shared. And folks, stay tuned. Again, go check out the master classes on 360 Sportsman to learn from these two amazing, intelligent beings. And we will see you on the next episode.
This episode is brought to you by Onyx Maps.